Excuse me. Hello, it's Patty Jo. Hi, how are you? I am so excited. I should be getting my new microphone. Thank you very much tomorrow. And so hopefully be, what do they call it? Glowing up, leveling up? I don't know. Something improving. When I worked in the fire department, people used to try, like patients and, people from, let's face it, gangs and stuff. They used to try to teach me how to say certain things. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. So I would just say them like the regular way. They would all laugh and say, "Yeah, just do it that way." That suits you. What we're trying to do, that's not you. Not you at all. So I guess goes to show, be yourself. Okay, so we're going to pay some more respects to the people who are giving their victim statements to Daryl, and then I think the next video will be his person's statement, which I know we're going to have tons of opinions on. So we'll get through the sadness here and continue to move along. Okay.
21st came around, I was excited to dance with all my best friends. Little did I know that was the worst day of my life. That day changed my life forever. My family and my friends thought that was the last day they would have with me. I can't even imagine what everyone was going through while I was unstable, in a coma, with a brain injury that later led to me having to get part of my skull taken out and put back in 2 months after. This major change in my life was all from the car that had struck me and many others on November 21st, 2021. I became worried and stressed because people treated me differently, and I saw myself as no longer strong, but weak. I didn't like that I could have a seizure. I lost my hair, and it made me feel bad about myself. This made a huge impact on my life. It changed the way my friends and family all see me now. I hated myself, and I hated what I had to go through. It was hell. I just want all the awful days in the hospital, trauma, all procedures to be put behind me so I can continue to live my life like all the days before the worst. November 21st, 2021. However, since I am a victim of the Christmas parade, this will always stay with me. Thank you.
Good afternoon. As I stand here before you today, I realize that you don't know who I am. I have been here almost every single day since this trial started. I realize that what I am about to share will not change what happened that day, but I hope it will give me some sort of peace and help me continue to heal. The WAUKESHA Christmas Parade was an event that both of my daughters have been involved in for many years with their dance team. This year, on the day of the parade, it was very cold and windy, so instead of walking alongside the dancers, I decided to take on a new role. I volunteered to sit in the bed of the pickup truck that was leading our dance team. I was filling all the parent volunteer buckets with candy. I had the best view of my daughter the entire time. She was in the front row, dancing her heart out and doing what she loved most. In one split second, all of that happiness ended. Through the parade route, at an incredibly high speed, I saw your pickup truck approaching the girls. At that moment, no level of screaming could be heard because of the music playing in the background. The dancers did not see you coming, but I did. It was horrifying. These girls that I have become so close with, flying through the air, losing their shoes, their hats, and their gloves. A sight I will never be able to forget. This is a vision that will haunt me for the rest of my life. I jumped out of the pickup truck so fast, not knowing where my daughter's body had landed. Once I was able to locate her body, I took one look at her, and I thought she was dead. She was not moving. She had blood coming from her head, her ears, her nose, her arms and legs. She was not awake or responding. I was unable to keep my composure. With my shaking hands and through my tears, I somehow managed to call my husband. He had stayed home with our youngest daughter, who was homesick. If she had not been ill that day, she would have been dancing alongside her sister. I tried to explain to my husband what had happened, but honestly, I don't remember much after that. Meanwhile, a man, who I believe was a spectator at the parade, came to my aid as I was trying to explain to my husband over the phone what had happened. This good Samaritan also had to keep me away from my daughter, who was lying lifelessly on the ground. As her mother, all I wanted to do was pick her up and hold her. However, I was unable to because she needed medical attention. All of the injured girls from our team were being triaged right there in the middle of the street. I remember screaming out loud, asking what was taking so long for an ambulance to arrive. In hindsight, I realized it was only minutes, but during that moment, it felt like eternity.
Like hours.
Everything just seemed to be moving in slow motion. Samantha was taken to WAUKESHA Memorial in the first ambulance that was able to get to us. She was later transferred to Children's Hospital because doctors realized that was the best place for her to be at the time, and due to the overwhelming amount of injuries from your reckless and thoughtless behavior, WAUKESHA Memorial needed more space for other hurt individuals. The other people that you carelessly hit. Thankfully, I was able to ride in the ambulance both times with my daughter, hoping and praying she would survive. Once at Children's Hospital, Samantha was taken for a second set of scans to evaluate what needed to be done. We quickly learned that she needed immediate surgery, where they would do a craniotomy to relieve the pressure from her brain swelling. When she came back from her emergency surgery, I lost it. She was intubated in a medically induced coma, and her head was wrapped in gauze. I just wanted to talk to her to talk to me so badly. I wanted to hear her voice and know that she was okay. At that moment, I would have done anything to switch places with her and take her pain away. Mr. Brooks, how could you possibly do this to someone? I need you to listen to me as I list her injuries. Acute respiratory failure, bradycardia, a skull fracture, multiple skull fractures, 5 fractures in different areas of her face, including the mastoid bone behind her ear, the bones that hold her eye into place, a fractured cheekbone, a brain bleed, an intracranial hemorrhage. Did you hear? The doctors told us that they did not know what the outcome of her injuries would be. They would not give us any false hope. They told us they did not know if she would survive. My husband and I did not know what the rest of her life would look like. If she survived, would she be able to walk? Would she be able to talk? We had no idea what the future would hold for Samantha. Our daughter was in a coma for 2 weeks in the critical intensive care unit at Children's Hospital. They needed to make sure that her brain was healing properly. Those were the hardest 2 weeks of my life. My husband and I lived at Children's Hospital, never leaving her side. We spent every hour of every day watching her body temperatures, her brain pressures, and the clock. We spent Thanksgiving at Children's Hospital, trying to find as much time to spend with our youngest daughter, who was not allowed to see her sister because of COVID restrictions. Weeks later, once medical personnel believed it was safe, she was slowly taken off her sedation meds. That was when her battle took a turn. Samantha is a fighter, and she was not about to let you destroy her life. Samantha had to learn how to swallow food. We spent weeks learning how to talk and walk again. Because of you, Samantha suffered a traumatic brain injury. She was unable to live a 14-year-old teenager's life. We struggle not knowing if or when she will have another seizure. Because of you, my daughter had her most beautiful hair shaved off. After spending 22 days in Children's Hospital, she was finally discharged. Finally being home with both my children was far better than Christmas morning. Even though it's almost been a year since this tragedy, it's still so painful to see her struggling with some everyday life experiences. I consider Samantha a gift. Based on the injuries she sustained from being hit by her vehicle, she should have died that day. But she didn't. And for that, I am so grateful. My heart goes out to those families who were not as fortunate. Since the first day you appeared in this courtroom, you have done nothing but make a mockery of this trial. I sat here every day listening to you act like this was just a game and showing no remorse for what you did. I have no forgiveness in my heart for you. You said as a father it hurt because you could not hold your babies, but yet you run over my child like she didn't mean anything. What kind of father does that? Because of you, our lives have been changed forever. Whatever pain you may encounter in prison will only be a fraction of what Samantha endured after this tragedy. Judge, we ask that you give Mr. Brooks the maximum sentence for each count without the chance of parole. Thank you.
I want to, if I can, I want to just chime in a little bit, because they're saying a lot about some of these injuries, but basically your brain is encased in a vault, and what they described is multiple fractures where it's just squeezed, and that precious brain is damaged, and the damage is, though can heal a lot, these are kids who may always have problems with seizures. They never had that before. And let me also bring you back to, people don't wake up from comas like they do in House or on Grey's Anatomy. I don't know any TV shows because I don't really watch TV. But the sedation is taken down slowly, and very slowly some responses come. The eyes don't open up immediately. It's a sometimes days, and, and if there's respiratory failure, and then when you're laying in bed, there's secondary infections. All of the damage to all of those cells in the body causes potassium to raise. Neurologically traumatized patients have a definite smell to them. I used to call it a neuro smell because of the damage to the body and what fluids are coming out and what is mixed with the blood, which also has a smell. When you're in these cases, children would be taken for test. A group of medical people, and I was one of those at one point, would come in. We wrap and move and manipulate the cords and put portable style monitors on. We check the vital signs. If there is a bolt or something measuring the brain pressure that stays in the head, we carefully monitor that, and it gets put on a special hole in a special monitor that will be able to be moved. And we just shove the whole bed out the door to the test, and you can't come with us. Sometimes we'll let you walk in the hallway, but inside the procedure rooms for the CTs and the x-rays and other things, or even if there's an interventional procedure, the parents can't come. So they're talking weeks of this. They're talking about weeks of this, and then months and years of recovery. So I just wanted to chime in and say that they're saying these things, but really wrap your head around how long we're listening to it, and it's painful to listen to for 2 minutes. I can't imagine sitting in a room for a month. Whew. Okay, here we go. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
And that was Victim Z and her mother.
Just spoke.
I'm just going to check. We may have one more. Okay. We have one more statement.
Hi. Oh, I left my pictures in the hallway. Can I grab my pictures? I'm sorry.
So nervous.
Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, one at a time. There's just two. Okay, sorry. I'm nervous. I forgot that I'm in the hallway. This is our daughter, Olivia. She is the baby of our family. That photo was taken on November 21st, 2021. At that time, she was an innocent 8-year-old who was excited to get to perform in the parade with her best friend and her teammates, and it was something she looked forward to every year. My mother-in-law and myself and I also join her every year and hand out candy, and it's something that's become, I guess, a tradition that was taken away from us by Daryl Brooks because of his selfless, just ability to have. Please don't do that. It's so disrespectful. I've watched all day on TV, and I've watched you mock all of the victims all day. You roll your eyes and you make faces. If this was your 8-year-old daughter that someone else hit, you would have been beside yourself if someone made those faces. And you want people to have forgiveness for you and your child? You're insane. I hope that the judge puts the most amount of years on your sentence, and I hope that you live in hell for the rest of your life for what you have done to all of these victims. Do you realize after you hit me and my mother-in-law, I spent 5 minutes walking around looking for my daughter on the ground? I was looking for her through little girls that were keeled up in little fetal positions because you had ran them over. You hit them with 3,300 pounds, and you don't care. Right before you hit me, I turned around and I looked at you. I didn't see your car. I saw the look in your eye. You knew exactly what you were doing. You knew exactly what you wanted to do. And that was because you are a narcissistic piece of shit that thinks you can get away with everything. And you are not going to ever get away with anything ever again. You did what you wanted to do, which was instill fear and horror in all of these children that are involved. You're a child killer, a woman killer. I cannot wait until somebody inflicts that harm on you. I'm done. I'm sorry. I'm done.
Do you want to take pictures of Olivia?
That's Olivia, and the next one is my daughter in the hospital room where I sat next to her for 5 days where she didn't move. My daughter who was in the ICU for 5 days. And in children's for an additional 9 more in the critical care unit because of her brain injuries that you caused to her, that she still deals with daily. I was late because I couldn't leave her because she didn't want me to leave because of her separation anxiety that you caused. You should not be allowed to be a father to your children. I'm so glad that you are being kept from them. The shit you would teach them would make them as evil and miserable as a person that you are.
I think this is a perfect picture of him. If she's the last one, that's amazing that he looks like that.
And that was victim FF and her daughter, victim GG, or maybe I mixed up the designations. But that's
Does
FF
anyone
and
else
GG.
want to make a statement?
I believe that was GG for your daughter's.
That was-
Okay, thank you.
I believe that concludes the statements, Your Honor.
All right, thank you.
I wouldn't want to follow
Attorney Opper,
her.
it's 4:56. Do you want to make your statements yet tonight?
Whatever the court wishes, Your Honor, I probably have about 15 minutes worth of comments, but
How many?
about 15, I would say.
I'd like to have you conclude
Okay.
tonight. I just want to take just a short break before we do that. I think we all could use probably a
Yeah.
short comfort break and a stretch break, and then we'll be back in about 5-10 minutes
Tissue break.
to hear your remarks.
Wow, that lady, that touched me. I think we're gonna listen to Miss Susan do her 15 minutes. I don't know if that's like her total remarks. We'll see. But I think we could definitely do that.
Back on the record then, and Attorney Opper,
Get better
you
at
may
that.
provide the court with your sentencing recommendation.
Thank you, Judge.
Yeah, this is it.
Obviously, I'm very grateful to the court for its patience in listening to all of these victims here today. It was very, very important that you hear from them directly, and the stories that they shared with you, really very personal and very compelling as to the impact that this crime had on so many people on so many levels. The focus of my comments, Your Honor, will briefly speak as to Darrell Brooks and his prior history, because I think it's important there's a record of that. But I don't intend to spend a lot of time on Darrell Brooks, because I think what's already been said is the most important message that I'd like this court to think about overnight as you consider your options here. I will tell the court as to Mr. Brooks' prior record. The court is aware from the bail jumping charges he's pending on several felony counts in Milwaukee County. 21 CF 5020, he's charged with intimidation of a victim, that being Erica Patterson, and felony bail jumping with an offense date of November 8, 2021. He's pending on case number 21 CF 4596 with an offense date of November 2 of 2021, charged there with resisting, obstructing, felony bail jumping, second degree recklessly endangering, saving.
Now, those are the two charges. One where he pointed a weapon at his nephew and his dead sister's son, twin sister's son, and then the one where he runs over Erica on the 8th with the same vehicle. Ugh.
Safety, domestic battery, and domestic DC. That is the case where he is alleged to have struck Erica Patterson in the face with a closed fist after an argument, and then as she was walking away, intentionally ran her over with the same 2010 Ford Escape that he used in this attack. When the police went to his mother's home and found him there, he was in the Ford as they approached. He got out and tried to run into the house. He ignored their commands to stop. He tried to flee and eventually was apprehended. He lied to them and said he was not driving the Ford SUV that day, even though there was evidence to the contrary. That case is pending in Milwaukee County. He was released on $1,000 cash bail in that case on November 19th of 2021. There's a third file pending, 20 CF 2550. The charges are 2 counts of second-degree reckless use of a weapon, felon in possession of a firearm. The date of violation is July 24, 2020. He was released on cash bail in that case in March of 21. In that case, the allegation is that he got into a fight with his nephew, and as his nephew was leaving the area, the defendant fired 1 shot from a handgun toward the vehicle that his nephew was in. The vehicle was occupied by 1 other person, and therefore he was charged with 2 counts. The next day, he was taken into custody, and a loaded Beretta 9mm handgun was located just a few feet away from him. That handgun had previously been reported stolen. I believe he has court on those
He is
files
such
later
trash.
this week in Milwaukee County, Your Honor.
My God.
As far as convictions are concerned, there's a 2012 conviction from May 15th, 2012, resisting obstructing misdemeanor in Milwaukee County, sentenced to 37 days jail consecutive to any other sentence. 4/23 of 2012, there were 2 files disposed of in Milwaukee County. One of them charged misdemeanor bail jumping and possession of marijuana. He was sentenced to 180 days in the House of Correction on both counts concurrent. There was another file for felony possession of THC as a second or subsequent offense. He was also sentenced to 180 days in the House of Correction for that file.
I'm sorry, what was the conviction for?
Felony possession of THC as a second or subsequent offense.
Thank you.
On April 30, 2010, he was convicted in Wood County of strangulation/suffocation with other charges for battery and criminal damage to property dismissed and read in. There was a withheld.
We are taught in human trafficking courses subsequent to paramedic education that strangulation in domestic relationships, or any relationship for that matter, is a sign of A, abuse, and B, quite frankly, trafficking. So he's trash. He's just trash.
Sentenced for 3 years probation. Ultimately, it was revoked in 2011, and he was sentenced to serve 11 months jail. 2009 conviction from Manitowoc County for misdemeanor obstructing, sentenced to 2 days jail, time served. 2005 conviction from Langlade County. Actually, it was a county ticket for disorderly conduct. He never paid the fine on that, so he ultimately served 30 days jail. 2003 conviction in Milwaukee County for resisting obstructing, 20 days in the House of Correction. 2002 conviction, Milwaukee County, felony possession of THC, second or subsequent offense, 50 days in the House of Correction. 2000, convicted of substantial battery, party to a crime, sentenced to prison, withheld, and 3 years probation imposed along with 6 months of condition time. That probation was ultimately revoked and he was sentenced to prison. That's his record from the state of Wisconsin. He has a record from the state of Nevada. June of 2016, he was charged with a sex offender registry violation, failed to appear in court on that offense, and there is currently an outstanding warrant for his arrest active in the state of Nevada. 2007, he pled guilty to statutory sexual seduction as a felony. A suspended sentence was ordered for 36 months probation. That's what led to the sex offender registry requirement, which he is currently non-compliant with. In December of 2006, there were 2 files disposed of in Nevada. One was domestic battery as a misdemeanor. He received a suspended sentence. And the other, he was found guilty at trial of obstructing misdemeanor and sentenced to jail. In the state of Georgia, he has a conviction from May of 2021. I'm sorry, not a conviction, an arrest from May of 2021 for misdemeanor battery, domestic violence. The disposition of that case is unknown. And of course, there's paternity action that was pending here in Waukesha County that had been a warrant or capias had been issued for him on at least 8 occasions during the life of that file. That's a 2003 case. He was sentenced to jail on several occasions for failing to pay child support. He was once allowed Huber privileges on a jail sentence, but had those Huber privileges revoked in 2009. Most recently, there was a warrant issued in August of 2021, and Judge Maxwell signed an order to lift a stay of a 120-day jail sentence. That is the extent of his criminal history that we are aware of, Your Honor.
Goblin trash.
I think it's very plain on its face. He's a lifelong criminal. He is someone who has repeatedly, continuously disobeyed law and law.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. He just stomps through everything like a big old goblin, spewing the garbage and the trash everywhere, and he thinks this is normal life. He's 40. Like, you're not 12 doing this junk. Oh God, trash.
Enforcement based on the resisting, obstructing type charges. There's multiple counts of bail jumping, disregarding court orders, disrespecting court orders. There's multiple acts of violence. There's weapons violations. This man has a history and a pattern of engaging in violent, dangerous behavior in the community. And it was no different on November 21 of 2021. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the attack. And I choose to call it an attack instead of referring to it as the parade, as somebody mentioned. There's nothing wrong with the parade. The parade is good. The parade is the embodiment of a community. That's what you expect to see at a parade, is children at a parade, families, people from all over the area coming together for a joyful, happy event. The parade will continue. It will kick off again in a few short weeks. And I hope and pray there's joy and laughter and kids in the street collecting candy. That's what it should be. So I'm not going to refer to this case as the parade. I'm going to refer to it as what it was, an attack. And the facts are very clear, Your Honor. Very few of the victims who were struck had any idea this car was barreling down on them. It's an act of a coward, plain and simple. They had no way to know it was coming. And he mowed over them and ran them over without any ability to defend themselves. What is so offensive about this conduct, Your Honor, is obviously the violent nature of it, but even more so, the defendant's conduct and behavior in this court, his complete lack of regard for the decorum of the court, the respect of the court. And I don't mean you personally, of course you deserve that as well, but I mean for the sanctity of the courtroom, the process that we as Americans respect and treasure and protect for well over 200 years, and he can't engage in the most civil behavior as being quiet when another person speaks. Many, many people came into this courtroom over the course of the trial and the proceedings. Every one of them was able to sit and obey the court's order. If you asked them to stand up, they'd stand up. If you asked them to sit down, they'd sit down. If you told them court's in session, be quiet, they all would. Everyone was able to do that except Darrell Brooks. I think he was able to do it. I just don't think he wanted to. I just think this is all part of his charade. This referring to himself in the third person, trying to distract him or detract himself, I should say, from the events, taking absolutely no responsibility. It's the act of a narcissistic coward. Those words have been used here today, and nothing could be further from the truth.
Closer to the truth, I think, is what she meant. Yes.
He is a coward. He ran like a scared little chicken from this parade, trying to slither away in the dark of night, but only to stop long enough and try and take advantage of good citizens that would help him. He calls and lies to his mom, right? Get me an Uber. I can't get into it. He lies to the officers repeatedly. We saw the time of his arrest. We heard the testimony from Daniel Ryder, a good man with good intentions and a good heart, who took this murderer into his home and held him there long enough for the police to come and take him away without any knowledge whatsoever of what had gone on. He takes advantage of everyone. He's extremely manipulative. He absolutely thinks he's in control of everything, when in fact, as he sits here in custody, he's in control of nothing except for his own behavior.
Mr. Brooks, be quiet.
Except
I'm not going to sit here and be disrespected.
Mr. Brooks, be quiet.
I'm not going to
You'll
sit
have
here
your
and be disrespected.
opportunity. These are sentencing arguments and they can make them.
So I could do the same thing?
Mr. Brooks, there's nothing disrespectful. They're doing it in
Yes,
a
it is.
respectful
Okay,
way.
call me out of my name again.
That's what
Go
you
ahead,
want.
Hopper.
Judge, these are the facts.
my God.
You heard from so many of these parents and so many of the people that were there of that fight or flight, right, that kicked in. He ran. He fled. He tried to protect his own self. That's it. That's all he did. Everybody else sprang into action, whether that action was to immediately account for their family and get them out of there to safety, whether it was good Samaritans. And Judge, I really thought long and hard. I had a video clip that I was perhaps going to show to you. You've seen a lot of this during the trial, but I mean, it comes from the clip when I showed during my closing argument near the end of the parade route where the Catholic community had been struck and all the shoes laying in the road and things like that. That person that took that video walked down Main Street for quite some time and captured quite a few images, and it's really quite powerful, but I also thought it's really quite painful.
Yeah.
But one of the things that was just so remarkable to us as we watched things like that was the average citizens that just sprung into action to save somebody else. There was a particular moment where there's a person on the ground fervently performing CPR on a victim in amongst a pool of blood without any regard for themselves whatsoever. I don't know who this person was. I don't think I'll ever know. But it's a prime example of the good that came out. So many people talked this afternoon about good versus evil, and I definitely believe that's what this case was about. Darrell Brooks is the epitome of evil. He is evil in
Another courtroom,
person.
please.
No, you may not.
The community is
May I have
good.
the order
The
of the court
people
so
are
I can,
good.
I think it'd be
The
best for me to
victims
just go
are
into the
good.
other
Mr.
courtroom.
Brooks, I'm talking.
I don't care about you talking.
I don't care what you care about.
I know you don't.
Sit down and be
You-
quiet.
Nah.
Everybody has told you
Nah,
that. Stop it.
Nah,
See,
nah,
you got it
nah,
all wrong,
nah.
Miss Opper.
Judge, the community
Thug.
has spoken. This jury returned a verdict in 2 hours.
Goblin thug.
That's how open and shut this case was.
Well, actually, it was
Everybody saw it.
Actually, it was
Everybody
okay.
but Darrell Brooks. This jury deserves
you think you know.
to be commended for their conduct, their
God bless you,
patience,
though.
their
God bless you.
service.
Mr. Brooks?
I asked to go to the other courtroom.
I'm not
so we
sending
wouldn't
you
have-
there.
So we wouldn't have to go.
It's not,
to
that is not a place you get to request to go to. It's
So
when
I
you
have to-
disrupt the
Tape over his
proceedings.
mouth would be
She's
I'm not
almost
trying to
done.
disrupt the proceedings. I'm trying to go to the other courtroom
No.
so she can finish saying the
I wanted-
BS she gotta say.
I wanted to share something with you, Judge. This is something that came in on December 5th of 2021. An anonymous letter came, well, it's not anonymous, it's signed, but it's from a person we don't know, from another state, from the state of Kansas. December 5 of 2021, this person took time out of her day to write a card it's addressed to the WAUKESHA community, and it was sent to our office. And she wrote, "We have been praying for the healing of your community. Please know that there are people who care deeply all over this nation." That's the kind of message Darrell Brooks needs to hear, because I know during the trial there was a lot of cards, a lot of messages received in my office and in your office. Good, hardworking, decent people that respect the law, that respect human life, that respect their neighbors, that would take the time to comment and say, "Good job. We support you. We are with you." And you saw that strength behind me all day. Those young kids, children, coming up. I mean, Your Honor, I'll say this. God is good. There's been a lot of talk about God. There's been a lot of talk about religion. Darrell Brooks brought the Bible into this courtroom.
Every day.
These children are remarkable for their strength, for their healing, their physical healing. We haven't met these kids before. We've never met them. We met them today for the first time. You would never know the serious injuries that they suffered as a result of Darrell Brooks by looking at them. Of course, there's much healing to be done. But isn't it remarkable that in a year's time, look how far we have come as a community. Look how far these families have come. These families, these victims that stood up and pointed to Darrell Brooks and said, "You will not beat me. You will not knock me down." That's what we need to move forward with as a community, Your Honor. His behavior is done. We're done with him. He has forfeited his right to be in this courtroom. He's forfeited his right to be in our community, period. There is not one thing that mitigates this sentence, not one. He deserves the absolute maximum sentence on all counts consecutive. Look, Judge, you saw the videos. This wasn't him plowing in to one large group of 50 people at one point in time and hitting them. It was linear. He hit one, kept going. Hit two, kept going. Hit three, kept going. All the way down the street. That's consecutive sentences, Your Honor. That's intentional, willful, volitional conduct that warrants consecutive sentences stacked one on top of the other, just as he stacked victims up as he drove down the road in complete disregard for any other person whatsoever. We kept the kids out of the courtroom in the trial, Judge, but boy, it's impactful to listen to them today and realize this isn't just, victim GG. This is a child that you willfully ran over with a 3,000-pound vehicle, as so many people so adeptly observed. Police officers, first
That's what you
responders,
did.
the medical professionals.
Trash.
It's kind of weird, Judge, because we're coming up on the anniversary, of course, and we're coming up on the weekend before Thanksgiving, which is a weekend that a lot of people pay attention to on the calendar because here in good old Wisconsin, it's deer hunting season. It's a lot of families going out, starting their Christmas activities, Christmas festivities, Christmas shopping, whatever it is. So it's kind of a weekend that comes around every year that on its own, it's not a holiday, it's not really a known day, but we all know that first weekend before Thanksgiving and what it brings. We all look forward to maybe a short work week, spending time with family, getting together, and here it comes, and it's the anniversary of this attack at the hands of Darrell Brooks. But we're going to have an ability to move on from that. We have the ability, we have the tools as a community, Your Honor, to do that. And that's definitely because of everyone that responded to this incident, the first responders, the police officers, the medical personnel that got paged in on a Sunday night when we're all hunkered down, Packers had played, it's cold, it's dark, and they all had to spring into action and respond. And there were law enforcement from all over southeastern Wisconsin, fire department, EMTs. No one paused, no one hesitated for a second. They just came and helped. And I think that's something that our families, our community can build on as well, Your Honor, to say evil is easily overcome here. Darrell Brooks deserved to be locked up for the rest of his life. He cannot be trusted ever, ever again. I ask you to consider, I'm not going to go into it, but we had filed the other act's evidence, some of the language in that other act's evidence, the intimidation of the victim. It played out repeatedly in this courtroom. He tried to intimidate you, he tried to intimidate me, he tried to intimidate the witnesses. He tries and tries and tries, but he fails. He's not the strongest person in the courtroom. He's the weakest person in the courtroom. Morally bankrupt. That's what he is. His character is void.
Yep.
I asked Attorney Basie, what's the word I can use for low character? And then we came up with the fact he really has no character. It's one of the factors the court needs to consider. Protection of the public, the severity of the crime, they all weigh heavily in a stacked sentence, Your Honor, consecutive maximum across the board. Every one of these victims deserves that. I don't know how we look at any of these victims and say, well, he got concurrent time on your case because your pain and suffering wasn't quite as bad as the guy before you or the girl before you. They all deserve that sentence that speaks to their count. The restitution, Your Honor, I filed the paperwork. We are seeking restitution in the dollar amounts from my letter that we reviewed this morning. I'm asking under 97320 sub 11 sub F that you enter an order that the Department of Corrections shall keep 50% of any wages Mr. Brooks may earn in prison and any monies that may be paid on his books or canteen account, and direct those monies to be paid directly towards restitution. He should not be able to work or receive canteen without paying down that restitution. I also included in my letter the request that should any monies ever be paid by contract to Mr. Brooks, that he should attempt to benefit financially from these crimes, that those monies would be placed into an escrow account maintained by the Department of Justice and paid towards the restitution. The restitution in this case is ridiculously low when you consider it. And that's, again, because of the generosity of good people all over the world that contributed to a community fund, and other individuals who generously donated to help these families pay for funerals and medical expenses and things like that. Can you imagine when you heard these mothers describing what their children have been through? Can you imagine the medical bills on these? And he's lucky he's getting off with a $200,000 bill for restitution, Your Honor. I think he should have to pay every last penny of it.
Here's what you think.
I also wanted to wrap up again, Your Honor, by saying you didn't hear from all the victims. Certainly, there were some that just cannot bring themselves to this court in any fashion, in any way. And we ask you to keep them in mind as well, especially the Bill Hospital family. Bill was, walking in support of his wife's team and trying to be in a supportive role, as he had done on many other occasions, and lost his life for that simple action, that simple act of good that he participated in. There were some groups that are not represented here today, but I know you heard their story at trial, and you're aware of what some of them went through that maybe wasn't specifically addressed here today, but I just ask you to keep in mind that we certainly presented a wide array of victims to you, but not everyone. And then certainly, as I mentioned at the outset, the community as a whole absolutely demands justice for these victims, these families, and for the community itself. That Darrell Brooks has no redeeming value, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, here's a good
Thank you.
question. Okay, here's a question. I know that they're probably just going to close the day, and we're gonna let them do that. But what do you think about if Erica Patterson had done a victim statement? Because she is indeed a victim of this. She was injured by him this same day during the incident, and part of the charges, on the one hand, letting the parade victims, survivors, and families that were actually run over by the vehicle be the focus is very important. But what is your view on if she had spoken for this as well? And how do you think that would have gone? Okay, so there's my question posed.
Mr. Brooks, as far as I can tell from the correspondence from your mom and from you, I believe there may be closer to 3 individuals plus yourself who wish to speak at sentencing.
Not 20?
Since we lost an hour or so today,
To the
although
shock
we did
of
go
nobody.
late, so arguably we gained it back, I still was thinking about starting at noon just to make sure there's ample time. I will start the Zoom shortly before that. The information has been provided to your mother, and I believe she will provide it to the other individuals on your list who wish to attend and make a statement on your behalf. So right at
All your
noon,
friends,
we will start that process. Typically,
all your friend.
I would hear from the individuals on your behalf with you going last, but you tell me if you want it to go a different order.
That's fine.
All right, and then I'll hear from you. I may take a short break before I come back out, or even a longer break, depending on the timing of everything tomorrow, to just collect all of the final statements and process them. Obviously, I'll take the overnight to process what I've heard today, in addition to what I've already been doing on my own. And I haven't seen any written statements on your behalf. I don't know if anything came in today during this hearing, but I'll rely on the verbal statements that are made and then yours at the time of sentencing, or prior to me imposing sentencing, okay?
I apologize. It's very emotional and frustrating right now. So
Yeah.
I apologize to you, Your Honor, and court.
I understand it's frustrating, and I understand that.
It's just very hard to sit and, you know, it's almost like a pylon. So I still understand that I have to conduct myself respectfully, so I apologize.
I think the apology needs to be made to the victim, sir, more so than this court.
Definitely. I was just referring to
I know. All right, anything else from either party before we conclude for this evening from the state?
No, Judge, we'll see you at noon. Thank you.
From you, sir?
not at this time.
All right, we are in recess. I'll see everyone tomorrow at noon. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for sticking that out. I cannot wait to go through the 3. God, he's such trash. Okay, I'm gonna go spend some money, some retail therapy. Okay, thank you so much. Like, subscribe, do whatever, comment, please. I need to catch up on those again. I'm woefully behind. I really do appreciate the people who are joining me and confirming that my views are not unilateral. So thank you so much, and I will see you next time. Bye. Bye-bye.